2018. As always, we're very pleased to have all of you that are here with us, whether you're here in the room tonight, and it's great to see a good crowd tonight, but also for people who are watching at home on our cable access channel. And while I'm talking about that, as many of you know, Spectrum has converted to digital-only programming. And it's probably not going to help you if you're trying to watch on TV and don't know what channel to look for, but just for everybody's future reference, and there is a release that the town has put out. Our former Channel 12 on the analog system, on the new all-digital system, Channel 1303 will now be the digital cable access channel on which these board meetings are being shown. And what has in the past been Channel 15, which is the more community programming channel, will be on Channel 1301 on Spectrum's new all-digital system. So if you're tuned in to Channel 1303 for this meeting, you're in the right place. But however you're watching us, if you're in the room, the full meeting packet, along with all of the supporting materials, everything that we have on our computers that we're working from tonight, is available in hard copy on the rear table. And if you are watching us on our cable access channel or streaming on our YouTube channel, and that was the reason for the delay because the computer knocked our YouTube connection, and it's very important that we have all of our broadcast opportunities for everybody. But the materials are available on our website, www.townofbrighton.org. The full meeting packet is available. We'll be starting our open forum in just a minute, but I do want to make a few just quick announcements. First, in case of an emergency, you'll hear the town hall emergency alarm system. If that alarm goes off, please leave the room and leave the building immediately, either by the door to my right, marked with the exit sign, turn right, go down the stairs, out the rear entrance of Town Hall, and move away from the building, or through the double doors in the back of the room, marked as exits, through the lobby, out the main front door of Town Hall, down the steps, and again, away from the building for your own safety. Now, if you found us on the new digital Spectrum channel, but you're having technical difficulties with the live broadcast, either the audio or the video, please contact Spectrum. Their number is 756-5000. Again, that's 756-5000. We'll start tonight's meeting with a pledge to the flag. I will ask Councilmember Jim Vogel to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, okay. There are a number of open seats here still for anybody coming in. The fire marshal is never happy when he sees people standing in the back. I do see some students here tonight, so I just want to take a moment. As many or most of you know, students across America, but particularly in Brighton, not only at Brighton High School, but at other schools here in Brighton, engaged today in peaceful exercise of their First Amendment rights in various ways at different schools. The Brighton High School, for example, was out on the football field. Students had their choice as to whether to go. McQuaid, I know, had a indoors in their, I believe their gymnasium, prayers for and some other engagement relating to the Parkland, Florida shooting. And I commend the students who made the decision and who led these activities because they were student-led activities. And I think that's a real strong indication of the kind of students and the kind of engagement that we have here in Brighton and in other communities. And I also want to thank the administration at the Brighton Central School District in particular, working with the students, but really allowing the students to engage and direct and lead their own activities, which is a very powerful message, I think, to those students. And also thanks to the Brighton Police Department, who was engaged with the planning and not only at Brighton High School, but at some of the other schools that were participating. We brought extra personnel just to make sure that those activities, and they were, conducted safely. So, Chief, you're here, thank you very much, but kudos to everybody else that was involved in that activity today. Before we get to the open forum, and I recognize that it's not on your agenda, but March is Women's History Month, and I want to read a proclamation signed by the members of the town board recognizing Women's History Month. Whereas each year during the month of March, we honor and celebrate the many accomplishments of our nation's women, and whereas in March 1987, Women's National History Month was established to commemorate and encourage the study, observance, and celebration of the vital role of women in American history. And whereas the theme for Women's History Month 2018 is Nevertheless, She Persisted, honoring women who fight all forms of discrimination against women, which specifically focuses on recognizing and honoring women who have for years persevered in spite of discrimination in their fight for pay equity, reproductive freedom, voting rights, racial justice, and other issues. And whereas throughout history, women have worked to advance a more equal and just society, contributing in innumerable ways to our character and progress as a people, in the face of discrimination and undue hardship, they have never given up on the promise of America because, as Susan B. Anthony famously said, failure is impossible. And whereas the town of Brighton is proud to be home to many women who have and who continue to be committed to expanding women's participation in leadership roles, and this town board proudly supports the efforts of women who persist in creating positive change in society. And we celebrate their courage, foresight, and resolve in working to strengthen our democracy. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and members of our Town Council, do hereby recognize March 2018 as Women's History Month in the town of Brighton, and it is with great pride and respect that we honor women who persist in seeking justice and equity for all. And it's signed by the members of the town board this 14th day of March 2018, and as we do with other proclamations, we will display this proclamation here in Town Hall. Now we will continue on with our open forum. We conduct the open forum before every town board meeting, and the open forum is an opportunity for anyone in the community to participate in this meeting to discuss any issue that they may have, whether or not it's an item on our agenda. Now, I would note that we have 3 public hearings tonight on our agenda, one concerning community choice aggregation, one concerning our source of income proposed local law relating to non-discrimination based on the source of income, specifically Section 8 housing vouchers in the rental of housing here in Brighton, and one proposed Section 103, Extension 103 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District. If you are here for any of those public hearings, I encourage you to wait until the public hearing is called. At that time, your comments will be part of the official record of the public hearing. But if there is anyone that would like to, oh, let me also mention, if you're at home or somewhere else and watching, streaming, or on our digital cable channel, you too can participate in the open forum by calling 303-3060. Someone will take your call or your comment and relay it to me, and I'll share it with the audience. That number is 303-3060. If you are deaf or if you are hearing impaired and want to call in with a comment, you can do so on our TDD line at 784-5205. Again, our TDD line to participate in the open forum, 784-5205. As always, we look forward to hearing from you during the open forum with your questions or your comments. I would note, please direct your comments to the board and not to other members of the audience. Please try to keep your comments concise. As always, if you have written comments, you can submit them to the Deputy Town Clerk, and he will see to it that those comments are included in the record, whether or not you have read from them. So I will now declare the open forum portion of this meeting to be open. Is there anyone that would like to address the town board during the open forum? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Supervisor Maley, members of the town board, and other town officials. My name is Aaron Sakin, and I'm an attorney for the group Save Monroe Avenue. Here tonight to speak a little bit about the Whole Foods project, including some of what was discussed today during the supervisor's 2 p.m. press conference, during which I think you called on the developer, among other things, to eliminate 6,300 square feet from the overall size of the project, which I believe is about 90,000 square feet. First of all, it seems to me that the town at least has finally admitted what we've been saying all along, which is the project is supersized and too large for the area. Unfortunately, though, even by this modest reduction, it doesn't solve the actual problem, and a problem we've been raising for several years, which is it doesn't shrink the largest traffic generator in the plaza, that being Whole Foods. What's essentially happened is the town board has given a directive, or at least the supervisor has, to lop off the tiniest building in the plaza. There's no directive that it actually addressed the largest traffic generator. In our opinion, that's essentially meaningless in dealing with an already difficult traffic problem. I'm also curious as well when the apparently secret decision was made to give this directive to the developer. Was there a meeting? How was this discussed by the board? All we've heard is that the town is directing the developer to cut off 6,300 square feet. I think the size of the Whole Foods project in particular, as the largest traffic generator in the project, is key. And I have prepared something that I hope will assist the members of the town board in their determination. I'd like for it to be included into the public record, and I will pass it forward. As I do, it is a letter. Yes, there's one original and then 5 copies with it. It's a letter that details a bit of an analysis that we've done. We've taken a look at what Whole Foods utilizes for store size in different places across the country, including Whole Foods' own criteria. And so when we call a 50,000 square foot Whole Foods market supersized, there's a reason for that. Start with Whole Foods' own website. They look for locations in stores that are 25,000 square feet to 50,000 square feet. That's part of the presentation there. So we've got a bit of a baseline here. 50,000 square feet is the maximum size, they say on their website through their own criteria, that they look for a store. Over the past couple of years, as you'll also see in what we prepared, they've been occupying stores over the last 2 years, I think they call them the 365 stores, that are roughly 30,000 square feet. In comparison, again, to 50,000 square feet here. Not to mention an average that is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 to 43,000 square feet across the country. So again, why does the Whole Foods in Brighton at this particular location have to be at the maximum end for what they require in a store? What concerns me is there has been apparently some sort of assumption that 50,000 square feet is necessary, and it troubles me. Where does that come from? Is the town relying on the representations of the developer, or has it done its own analysis, an independent analysis on what size store is necessary and would be appropriate here? Has the town also done an independent analysis as a fiduciary regarding the amenities that would be provided under an incentive zoning deal? I don't think the town has, which is one of the reasons why we submit. It's a special sweetheart deal for the developer, because what the town would be getting in return is stuff it can make the developer do anyway to mitigate the effects of the project. Have we seen any studies, data, or affidavits from Whole Foods about the necessary size here, about why they need the maximum on this footprint in Brighton? Again, I am concerned that we are relying on the word of the developer regarding what is needed for the largest traffic generator there. And I would say this, I believe some have said before at public hearings on this project, they think the developer overpaid for the property. Maybe, I don't know. But if that's true, if the developer overpaid for the property, the town should not be in the business of bailing out the developer by giving it the largest possible footprint that Whole Foods seeks, based on what's on its website. That's a concern, and that's one of the reasons why we have been urging the town to go through the traditional zoning process, which I think would start with a much smaller footprint and proposal that is more appropriate for this particular area and more in line with what's permissible under the zoning code. I think the consensus has been that it's very encouraging that the town board did listen to the local residents about eliminating the potential for the ingress and egress over onto Clover or Allen's Creek, and that was well received, and it's certainly appreciated. But to make my point from before, that and cutting off the 6,300 square feet from a 90,000 square foot project doesn't solve the problem. And the fact that you're removing the ingress and egress points from the neighborhood, which we think is a good idea, means it's even more critical that the board gets the traffic situation on Monroe Ave correct, because those points aren't going to be there and aren't going to be available. I think the board has an obligation to think through whether 50,000 square feet, the max apparently, according to Whole Foods projections on what it's looking for, whether that's really appropriate here. One final point with regard to the size of the project. Based on what the supervisor called for today, I'm presuming it's going to require a new submission to the town. If that's the case, I would strongly urge the members of the town board to allow the public sufficient time to review that new submission and to hold hearings, new hearings on the new submission to the extent there are material changes to it, which could affect SECRA or anything else. And I would urge you to do both of those things before proceeding with any kind of vote, which, in our opinion, would be improper. Final point with regard to some documents that our organization has requested. We submitted a Freedom of Information request to the town in late January. Last week, we were advised, when we appealed the determination by the town, that these documents, these records that we requested, would be released within 60 days. Let me back up for a second so everybody understands what we were, among other things, requesting. We're requesting any communications between certain town officials and the developer or its consultant. We've also requested submissions and other things involving incentive zoning. The town board, I hope, will pledge here tonight not to vote on anything until the members of the public have had the opportunity to examine the communications between town officials and the developer to see what, if anything, was said over the years, what, if anything, led up to the decision from the town to utilize the incentive zoning process, what, if anything, led up to the decision to allow the developer, presumably, to proceed with a 50,000 square foot project and store, well, a 90,000 square foot project, a 50,000 square foot store that's the largest generator of traffic there. What led up to this in exchange for amenities, which aren't even that, which the town could require anyway? And we hope that the town will release those documents for the public to examine before it takes any action regarding this project, and not slow walk our FOIL request so those records are released well after a vote has been taken. I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions the members of the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sakin. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum? I don't know that anybody has any questions of Mr. Sakin, but thank you for your comments. Yes, come on up.
Good evening, Supervisor Maley, members of the town board. Rob Brenner with the law firm Nixon Peabody here on behalf of the Clover Allens Creek Neighborhood Association. In light of the supervisor's press release earlier today, I just want to make three brief points to follow up on that. First, I wanted to thank you all for the hard work that you've done. We're pleased that the supervisor and the town board are finally recognizing the problems that we've been discussing for years. It's encouraging that you've all expressed a desire to address these problems, but we'd argue the devil's in the details. We need to have a meeting with the town to discuss the mechanics of how any rear ingress or egress points will be legally closed on Clover Street and Allens Creek Road. We need to be confident that these protections that are put in place are legally enforceable and that the protection for the neighborhood cannot be undone. Merely paying lip service to this concern is not enough. We want to sit down with the town and the town attorney and hammer out the details of such a document, whether it's a restrictive covenant or some other legal mechanism put in place to protect the neighborhoods. We want to make sure this is done right. Second, we need to see what the buffer along the residential area will ultimately look like and where it will be. And as you know, the association has concerns about the trail and whether and where it will be relocated to. And importantly, we're concerned about the project and how far it'll encroach into the residential district. We want to review any updated plans that are made in light of the comments and the changes that were directed toward the developer today, so we have appropriate time to comment on such changes. Third, today's press release has left the door wide open with respect to the reduction in size. Will the 6,300 square feet come from a small trip generator on site, such as one of the standalone buildings, or will it come from the 6,300 square feet come from the Whole Foods store itself? Those are two very distinct reductions in size on the project site that would greatly affect traffic along Monroe Avenue. As the town board knows, the association has always been concerned about the supersized nature of the project and its impact on traffic, both on Monroe Avenue and, of course, our primary concern along the residential side streets. It sounds like the residential side street issue has been addressed, but we're still concerned about Monroe Avenue. We need to be sure that the size of the project is appropriate for the area, and in the interest of transparency, we'd appreciate having further conversations with the supervisor and staff about the reduction in size, the rationale for the reduction in size, and any studies that were reviewed in connection with this reduction. Again, thank you very much. We appreciate you listening to our concerns. There's more to be done, but this is an encouraging first step. If we're to all work together in good faith, as the supervisor suggested today, we need to work out these details before anything moves forward. And specifically, before any approvals are entertained, we'd very much appreciate that all of these things are worked out in writing so that the association can see them before any vote's taken on the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Mr. Wilt?
My name's Nicholas Wilt. Happy Pi Day. And Bill, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm here with Citizens for East Avenue Bike Lanes, which is a single-issue organization advocating for the rehabilitation project planned for this summer by the New York State Department of Transportation to include federally compliant bike lanes. As you're aware, East Avenue is currently configured to have 4 10-foot wide lanes in the 40-foot right-of-way, and the plan is to replace that with a road-dieted 3 lanes, 2 travel lanes, and 1 centered turn lane. The original plan of record provided for 3 11-foot lanes, but after some discussion, DOT agreed to narrow the 2 travel lanes to 10 feet, but their highway design guidelines require for a roadway like East Avenue an 11-foot center turn lane. On the other hand, the federal guidelines require a 5-foot right-of-way for a compliant bike lane. So it would seem impossible to reconcile these, except that it may be that DOT's guidelines are out of date because Monroe County builds 10-foot wide center turn lanes all over the county, and we provided the Public Works Committee with copies of maps of areas around Monroe County that have roads built to that standard. So I'm here tonight to encourage folks who want to learn more. They can go to the website, citizensforeastavbikelanes.org. There is a petition page where people can sign their name and as a citizen co-sponsor of the idea of real bike lanes on East Avenue. The project has a planned 17-year lifespan. So if you want bike lanes anytime between now and 2035, now is the time to act. Because Monroe County actually builds roads to this other standard, we are petitioning the board to enact a resolution that references the Monroe County standard and paves the way to, you see what I did there? Paves the way to, we can really have our cake and eat it too. One final comment I want to make is that it may seem that you're balancing the safety of motorists against that of bicyclists, but we've provided, and I had a couple hard copies, this was the only one left, so they're out there in circulation somewhere, of a paper entitled Narrower Lanes, Safer Streets, that summarizes the surprisingly recent finding that narrower lanes actually have a traffic calming effect, which is compatible with the goals of the road diet in the first place. So I do not believe that narrowing the center turn lane, which is barely going to be used by anyone anyway, would compromise the safety of the motorists. And the bike lanes, the merits speak for themselves. I imagine a lot of people here are supporting, they're here to maybe comment on this pending CCA agenda item for tonight. The environmental goals underpinning CCA are quite compatible with the goals of having bike lanes in the main thoroughfare that connects the city of Rochester to the east side. And the final ask I would make is our senator, the state senator for all of Brighton, is also the chair of the Transportation Committee in the state Senate, Senator Joe Robach at nysenate.gov, and it wouldn't be terrible for him to hear about this project because I imagine he has some influence. I'm around if people have questions. The website has a wealth of information, and please consider passing that resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. This is an issue that the town board and I have also been engaged in, along with the supervisor of the town of Pittsford, which is also affected by this project. You know, the common sense element, it really certainly seems to me as simple as what Nick describes. We had 4 10-foot wide travel lanes, each of which engaged traffic driving at speeds of, in theory, 40 miles an hour, you know, passing each other in close proximity, being replaced with 2 lanes, also 10-foot wide, and the opportunity for a 10-foot center turn lane, which would have much less traffic because it would be a limited use lane, going at a slower speed because it's only there, and this is the third point, for a much shorter distance. It's there to turn in or to turn off East Avenue. So the reasons that would have permitted a 10-foot travel lane would seem, and I'm not a highway engineer, but would seem to justify a 10-foot center lane. The state DOT, as Mr. Wilt indicated, that is not their design guideline, and to date they've hung firm on that. And the impact of that is that extra foot would be ½ a foot added to each side, turning those 4.5-foot shoulders into 5-foot wide bike lanes. Now, in our most recent correspondence by the town board, we enclosed information about a recent project on US Route 62 in the village of Hamburg. It's a US highway, but it is maintained by the state DOT, showing a 2-lane road with painted shoulder lanes where they found they couldn't get enough width, but at least were willing to paint it to give a better signal that, hey, this is something other than a travel lane. That it doesn't appear to have met with, it doesn't appear that that's something they're prepared to do either. So we are going to look at yesterday at our public safety committee meeting, we did have another discussion on this topic. And we're going to do a couple of things. One, the town attorney has been very busy these last little while, but we are going to ask Ken to review. The town of Pittsford is planning on considering a resolution, I believe, adopting for itself the 10-foot center lane standard that the county has. We want to take a look at what they're considering and also take a look at the implications of that, understand exactly what they would do here in the town of Brighton and what the legal implications of that would be. So we're gonna have the town attorney do that and look to see whether this is a viable way to make one more effort. And I appreciate the community effort, and I hope the community appreciates that the town has been working as well to try to get, because this, not only is this a main gateway out of downtown, it connects 2 colleges, St. John Fisher and Nazareth in Fisher. Obviously, that just further shows the importance of bicycle travel along those roads. So more to follow. Thank you for your presentation. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum this evening? Yes.
I'm just going to make a very quick comment about Whole Foods
Sure.
project. And I'm sorry I haven't studied everything.
Well, that's all right. And if you would just your name and your
My name's
address.
Stephanie. I live at 53 Chelmsford Road. I wanted to make sure that the traffic studies account for a potential Starbucks drive-through. And somewhere I heard through rumors that drive-throughs have been discouraged along Monroe Avenue. And what is the potential of opening up a drive-through Starbucks next to Whole Foods? And there's a Dunkin' Donuts across the street, and I know there's other restaurants who are interested in perhaps doing drive-throughs, that we also account for that extra traffic. That's all.
Thank you. I can tell you that, yes, the traffic studies that were performed and are part of the record on that application do contemplate the drive-through Starbucks. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Yes, ma'am.
Is it really your birthday, Supervisor?
It is.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm Mindy Zoglin, and I represent individuals in a business in the town in connection with the Whole Foods request for incentive zoning. I saw today's press conference in which Supervisor Maley indicated that the town board would like the applicant to reduce the project from about 90,000 square feet to about 84,000 square feet by either removing the 6,300 square foot building or something else. And if the project is changed, we ask the board to give the public the opportunity to review and comment on any changes. At any rate, even with a 6,300 square foot reduction, this project really is not appropriate for incentive zoning. Incentive zoning is based on the premise that a developer will not provide certain uneconomic uses and amenities unless it gets an economic incentive. And these uneconomic uses are usually things like affordable housing or childcare facilities. And the uneconomic amenities are usually things like utilities and road improvements or cultural or historic facilities. But here, the amenities that are offered by the applicant will not enrich the community because they're things this board could require as part of the seeker process or site plan review. The amenities that are offered by this applicant will also increase the value of the applicant's own property. And they simply don't enrich the community. They enrich the developer. So why not build a 25,000 square foot store that complies with the zoning code? It can't be because the major tenant demands a 50,000 square foot store. They have smaller stores all over the country. And as we heard earlier tonight, its own guidelines call for stores between 25,000 square feet and 50,000 square feet. So what public purpose is being served by using incentive zoning to wedge a gigantic store into a small space without requiring the developer to demonstrate that it's entitled to over a dozen area variances? Why use incentive zoning to achieve a result that will not produce any real benefit to the community, or for that matter, the major tenant? Incentive zoning can be a really great tool when it's used to advance lofty community goals, but it's not something that should be used as a pretext to circumvent the zoning code to allow the construction of a store that is so large that it's just barely within the developer's tenant's own guidelines. My clients ask this board to deny the incentive zoning application and send it back to the ZBA where the application belongs.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board during the open forum? Mr. Daniele?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and town board members. I was originally going to speak, and I decided against it for many reasons, one of which is I had a video presentation, and I know that if I don't give the town notice ahead of time, that's always a disaster, so I decided against it, so I understand how it works. I was just going to come and listen tonight, but I couldn't help but listen to the lawyer from Save Monroe Avenue, and it sparked me to speak for just a moment. It's great that we've actually got a biking community here tonight, because this plan for the Whole Foods development includes almost 2 miles of brand new biking trail that is bikeable, that will be bikeable, that is not currently bikeable, as part of our amenities to the town, which for some reason keep getting thrown around by some that it's not an amenity at all, and that they can just ask for that at any time if we went through traditional zoning. That holds probably 0 facts. There's an attorney here, we're not here to discuss it, but this is a fact that is undisputed, that 2 miles of trail would never be added the way we're adding it now without this process. I say that to the biking community since they're here. Again, the reason why I got up to speak tonight, when I had chosen not to, was because I'm disgusted by the amount of lies that are being perpetuated by a group that calls them, a corporation, actually, it's incorporated, that calls themselves Save Monroe Ave. They're made up of, well, actually no one at this room, except for one person who's getting paid, knows who's paying them. They say they are represented by businesses. To this day, the only business that's gone on record that has sent a letter to the town of Brighton in opposition of this project is Wegmans Supermarkets. And we have no problem with Wegmans. We shop there all the time, went to school with their kids. They're a great family. It's a great company. But unfortunately, that's the only letter that's on record against this project from a business. And they're not even in the town of Brighton. A couple weeks ago, there was a public board meeting, and there was over a dozen businesses that came and spoke in person. There was a petition with almost, I think, over 60 signatures, clear signatures with clear addresses, with clear business names that are in favor of the project. Why do I say this? Why am I getting up and talking? Going back to the lies, a couple times tonight you heard that it's been stated that the tenant, Whole Foods, they only want stores 29,000 feet to 50,000 feet, and why are we building such a big store? Why do we have to go on the higher end? That's information that's pulled from the internet, which I teach my kids is not information. They say, well, that's from the Whole Foods site. That's from the Whole Foods site, so it must be true. They have a large conglomerate, and they've just been purchased by Amazon. They don't update their website every day when it comes to that kind of stuff. What they update is their prices, their availability, their delivery. When they say we're going to be building on the highest end, that's a lie. It's a lie because there are other Whole Foods stores that are much larger. More so, I know there's some that are 70,000 feet. There's plenty more over 50,000 feet. There's one that just opened less than 6 months ago, about 50 miles away from here, in Buffalo, Amherst, 50,000 feet, same size as us. Ever since Amazon took over the company, they have made directives internally, and they don't have to post it on their website every time they make a decision. It's been said that the traffic study was based on one Whole Food store in Darien, Connecticut. That's what Save Monroe Ave is perpetuating out there. And I feel bad for a lot of the residents that listen to this information because they believe it's true. They trust these lawyers. A last post they had made on their website was, don't believe the traffic study because it's based on one store in Darien, Connecticut, which is actually only, they're saying, 35,000 feet. That store is 45,000 feet with 5,000 extra feet of office space. They haven't been in that store and spoken to the developer who developed and built that project. I have. I'm speaking from facts, not lies. I was asked by the media, why do I think Wegmans is involved? I said, listen, I'm not saying who's not involved and who's involved. All I know, I said, was that there's only one business that's ever gone on record to the town of Brighton saying that they're against it. Only one business, and it's Wegmans. Obviously, they have an interest, perhaps, and they've made it very clear that they're concerned with the traffic as well, and that it's not a good location for a grocery store, even though they opened up a grocery store less than a half mile away. Again, they posted on their website that Danny Daniele's a liar, and how dare he say that they've only received one letter when they've received dozens and dozens. Normally, I try not to get involved in that stuff, but when they make a personal attack, I find it really hard to refrain myself. I let them know, I said, show me one other letter from another business that's gone on record in the town of Brighton against this project, and I will personally donate $1,000 to the charity of your choice. And to this day, all I've heard is crickets, not one letter. For $1,000 to give to a charity of their choice. When they say they represent businesses, I say that's a false statement, and we don't know today who they represent, but it seems like every time he gets up here and speaks, I say he, whoever is representing them that day, you'll notice that their big request is to delay. Don't do anything, we need to look at it, we need to revote. Today they said we need more public hearings. It's been 3 years and lots of public hearings. I think the public has been very clear as to what they want. When I say the public, it's the residents who live around there and live in the town of Brighton and within our community. They have spoken clearly and loudly, and the town has listened. I'm not at all happy with it. I'm not very happy with the announcement today. I'm not sure we can cut that much out of the project and still make it a feasible project. But I do appreciate the fact that the system is working. Save Monroe Ave Incorporated wants everyone to believe that the system is broken. And like they posted on their websites, they want everyone to believe that the town is on the take and there's some backroom deal.
Mr.
If there's a
Kane,
backroom deal, I'd like to know. I'm going to
please direct
my comments
your
towards you. I'm
to the
sorry.
board. Thank you.
I apologize because I do get a little emotional when I hear disgusting fake lies, especially when they use my name, my family's name. We've done a lot of work in the town of Brighton and in this community, Monroe County. We stand behind our projects, and I will not move forward when statements like that go unanswered. The town has said that they will most likely guarantee closing of those back access points. Again, I think it's unfair for a developer to have to do that, but I get it. We're in a community, if that's what they want, maybe we can work that out. I think we can make things like that work out. My concern is that they continue to delay it because it doesn't matter what the town does or what we do as a developer, they will not stop. When I say they, it's this conglomerate who's paid up till now, we've calculated a little over $250,000 against this project between the robocalls, the mailings to the homes, the newspaper ads, not articles, ads. We've got lots of businesses and we spend a lot of money in media for our businesses, and I know how much they cost. The attorneys driving from Buffalo, that all adds up very quickly. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the town does or what the developer does. Until Whole Foods is gone, they will not stop. They'll never say that, and he may get up and rebut that with probably more lies and facts, and I'm not going to get up and speak after he speaks because we're not going to go all night.
Please, direct your comments to us. Please don't impugn.
You got it. There's been a scare tactic with the traffic that this project they keep saying is supersized. They use the McDonald's statement. 50,000 feet for a supermarket is small supermarket in today's standards. The Wegmans in Pittsford is 135,000 square feet on a 10-acre footprint. We're on a 10-acre footprint, and we're 90,000 complete, and that's with a 50,000 square foot Whole Foods. 50,000 versus 135 on 10 acres, same projects. When we talk about the traffic light, and this is one of the last points I'll make, we have one traffic signal for 90,000 square feet. One traffic signal, 90,000 square feet. Pittsford Plaza has 1.2 million square feet, if you add it up. They have 3 traffic signals. You do the math, 1.2 million divided by 3 traffic signals is 400,000 square feet per traffic signal. We have one traffic signal for 90,000 square feet. The mere inclination that this traffic signal may not handle 90,000 square feet is the biggest lie being perpetuated. Maybe it's not a lie, maybe it's a fabrication of the truth. Maybe it's a way to try and get as many residents on board. Maybe it's a way to scare everybody into believing, wow, this project does seem a little too big. I've talked to a lot of people when they know the facts, they say, I don't know why this is having such a problem with the town. When I talk to someone who doesn't know all the facts, the first thing they say is, yeah, it sounds like it's too big, because that's what they're hearing. And that's exactly what a lot of people want them to think. The facts are much different. My biggest concern is that the residents and the town boards are being fed a lot of misinformation mixed in with the facts that you have in front of you. I just ask the town board to rely on the facts that you have that have been vetted by those that you have hired and that you trust, and that your decisions are based on those and not on the false lies that are being perpetuated by a corporation that's hiding behind some veil that no one knows where it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniele. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the open forum? Hearing none, we will continue with our agenda for tonight. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? David, did we receive any written comments during the open forum?
We received 2.
Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the items of correspondence that you received as additional matters of communication.
So moved.
Second.
David, please call the roll.
Sure. Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
Werner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. We'll now begin the public hearings for tonight. Our first public hearing involves proposed extension 103 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District. And I'll ask the Deputy Town Clerk, has the necessary legal notice been given in this matter?
Yes, it has, Supervisor.
Thank you. I declare this public hearing to be open and would ask Tim Keefe, our Commissioner of Public Works, for some background information.
Be glad to, Supervisor. This parcel at 1925 South Clinton Avenue is owned by the DeMarcos, and probably better known as the former site where Empire State College was going to come in and a few years ago. And the DeMarcos have gone before the planning board and have gone before the town board, as you know. It's 11 point, almost 2 acres that they're proposing to bring into the sanitary sewer district so they can provide the necessary services in that regard for the project. And this is very consistent with parcels that are in town that do not have sanitary sewer service and are not in the sewer district to require this type of action by the town board.
Thank you. As you know, during the discussion of the substance of the incentive zoning proposal that was approved for this property, I recused myself, and I will again recuse myself from the discussion of the extension of the sewer district for the parcel, and I'll ask Councilman Vogel to conduct the public hearing, and someone come get me when it's been concluded.
And at this time, we'll welcome anyone who care to speak regarding this matter. Anyone here? Don't all jump up at once. All right. Hearing none. Any comments here from the board?
Jim, this is just the one of the first steps towards developing the parcel opposite Tops Plaza there by the DeMarco Group. We've had extensive discussions at Public Works and elsewhere about the project, had significant negotiations with the developer regarding the amenities they would provide the town in return for the zoning incentives granted them, slight variances and so forth within the project. And they have, I believe, been generous in their agreement to develop sidewalks all around the project, across the street from the project, and out on Elmwood Avenue as well, which will link this project with other sidewalks and neighborhoods, which again, I think is a classic use of incentive zoning, where the town gets a benefit from the flexible approach of incentive zoning. This consolidated sewer district is the beginning of that project and the underground utilities. And, I think it's very appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. This project, I've been obviously here involved as well in watching it as it goes along and talking with the applicant with regard to the incentives as well as the amenities. And the amenities, as Chris has said, are significant. This is a very good example of how effective incentive zoning can be when it's properly utilized, being transparent and very open. This has taken a while to come to this point, But and at the end of the day, this has basically turned out to be what I would consider a win-win situation, clearly. So, Robin, I don't know if you had any comments at all?
I would echo your comments regarding the successful implementation of incentive zoning on this project. The benefits accrued to the town are significant, and I think this is a good first step in development of the project.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to focus, this particular public hearing and this particular matter that is before the town board tonight is simply the extension of a sewer easement.
Yes, right.
The incentive zoning was passed on by this board some time ago.
Several months ago, yes.
If there is no further comment, I'll declare this public hearing closed and ask that we have one of you submit the resolution.
Jim, on the matter before us regarding extension of number 103 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District, I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
All right. We'll get the supervisor back in here. Move on to the next public hearing.
Give me the thumbs up when you're ready.
Thank you, Jim, for conducting that. Thank you, Ken, for coming to get me. Can I just, was action taken? It was.
Yes.
All right,
Resolution
thank you.
passed.
Very good.
Unanimous.
Then we will move on to the source of income proposed local law. And I'll ask the deputy clerk, has the necessary legal notice been given in this matter?
Yes, it has, Supervisor.
Thank you. Then I declare this public hearing to be open. The purpose of this law, the proposed source of income local law, comes from some community discussion, really an outgrowth of some of the discussions about equity and race in the community, and the realization that very few communities protect renters, tenants, from discrimination in renting to them based on the source of income, specifically government programs such as Section 8 housing. I have to admit that I thought state law precluded that discrimination before digging into this matter. It does not. There are some communities that have prohibited it. And as we look at these issues, CURB and other groups in Brighton have been engaged in issues such as these. I thought it was important that the town board consider local legislation that would make it clear that in renting residential housing, that the source that a prospective tenant has for their income not be considered in making the rental decision, and in fact that it be found to be a discriminatory action if they do. This matter was discussed at a number of committee meetings of the town board, both last year and this year. I've had discussion with landlords in Brighton, commercial concerning their experience with Section 8 tenants, and felt that it was important to hold this public hearing and consider this proposed local law. So to that end, and the proposed text of the law is before you, Is there anyone that would like to address the board concerning this proposed local law? Yes, come on up.
Hi, I'm actually here originally for the CCA next, but I am actually a renter in Brighton. I'm Chelsea Hunt, 155 Winter Greenway, and I think it's a very good idea.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on this matter? Hearing none, I declare this public hearing to be closed, and I would suggest, since we have not gotten a lot of discussion, and since we have discussed this in our committees, that someone make a motion on the resolution that you have in your packet to consider this local law.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Jim. Motion is to consider adoption of the source of income local law.
I think there's a resolution in the packet.
In the form of the resolution that is there in the packet. Is there any discussion by members of the board on this motion? Oh, by the way, if I didn't already, the public hearing, yeah, I did close it. Okay.
Bill, I share your surprise that that the state has not already legislated this. Section 8 is very difficult to get. It's a very important benefit that we provide our community for those folks that did not have the income to support different form of housing to bring them into our neighborhoods and such, and not just be located in the very poorest parts of town. And I think it would be a very bad situation if the landlords could frustrate that very important social program, and I support it very much.
And likewise, I feel the same way. This was a surprise to me as well. I thought this was covered under the state law. Yeah.
I would say that diversity being one of the tenets that we hold dear in Brighton, I think this non-discrimination statute is very important because we also value socioeconomic diversity. There are many forms of diversity, and we want everybody to experience what a tremendous community this town is. And it's so important that people, regardless of their source of income for housing, are able to enjoy this community. So I'm happy to see this law considered.
This community has been addressing a crisis of poverty, and in particular a crisis of poverty that has been concentrated in certain parts of the community. One of the reasons it is so concentrated, and there are multiple reasons, but one of them clearly is housing opportunity. And frankly, communities, I think, all have an affirmative obligation to, and we as elected officials have an affirmative obligation to address, to be a part of addressing the poverty crisis. I believe this is one of the ways we can do so. Ken, I do just real quickly want to suggest there may be a minor amendment that we want to make. I do note here, I had it right there in front of me and then I was talking. In section subsec 163-5A1B, there is a reference to it being an unlawful discriminatory practice for the owner, lessee, sublessee, etc., having the right to sell, rent, or lease a housing accommodation commercial space constructed or to be constructed or land. And I believe it's the intent of this local law to address residential housing. And I'm not sure that that reference to commercials, the leasing of commercial space or land is appropriate there. And your thoughts on that?
Certainly at the discretion of the board, but there are occasions where the source of funding for a business person may be something different than what the landlord or property owner is used to seeing. And it would seem to me that the town, in being a leader in both civil and social rights, would want to see businesses flourish in Brighton, regardless of the source of the income they may have for funding the leasing of that commercial space.
I guess from my perspective, it's residential space that is the real concern, and I wonder how broadly that, you know, if someone came in and said, I want to rent this for Bitcoin, I'm going to give you, you know, 1.5 Bitcoin, and the landlord says, I don't know, I don't understand Bitcoin. I understand. I don't know whether that's the kind of situation that would be covered. But what I do know is, I think is you know, as we look at the purpose described in here, it really is to address housing issues. So I'm just going to ask the parties who, the mover and the seconder, Robin and Jim. Yeah, Ken.
Before you go there, if we're going to take the references to commercial space out of the proposed law, then you're also going to want to delete the definition of commercial space from 163.
And that was going to be my next point.
And all other references to commercial space. It was put in there intentionally because of the, well, to be quite honest, this law mirrors and mimics the law that exists in the towns of Hamburg and the town of West Seneca. To my knowledge, the only two other towns in the state of New York that have a similar...
At least in western New York, yeah.
Across New York State,
yeah.
Across New York State. I looked at all of those local laws, and these are the only two. So in many ways, the town of Brighton is, again, being a leader in the area of social and civil rights, certainly the first town in this county that is passing anything like this. I leave it to the pleasure of the board.
Robin, you made the motion. Jim, you
seconded.
I guess I would ask for that as a friendly amendment to delete the reference to the commercial space and land, and to delete the definition of commercial space.
On the matter regarding the source of income local law, we offer the friendly amendment to remove the references to commercial space from
and land
and land from.
So we would be deleting the defined term commercial space, and in that subsection B, we would take the phrase commercial space constructed or to be constructed or land out. You make that friendly amendment.
I'd accept that, yes.
As well.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll deem the motion to be changed. And Sandy, it's great to see.
Thank you. It's good to see you too.
My good friend and predecessor, former Supervisor Frankel. The public hearing is concluded, but we certainly welcome your comment.
Thank you. I got up here a little bit too late after you did that, but I had a couple of questions or thoughts that I just wanted to put out there for consideration as you think about this particular issue. One is, and it's a question that I'm going to leave to the legal minds here, and that is, are apartment buildings considered commercial properties and would be covered in that way, or is by defining it as residential, regardless of the nature of that residential unit, differentiated enough that the commercial piece isn't relevant?
apartment buildings would still be covered under the source of income local law. There's a definition that remains, even with this friendly amendment, for housing accommodation, which is the term that is used throughout the local law. It includes any building, structure, or portion thereof located in the town which is used or occupied or is intended, arranged, or designed to be used or occupied as the home, residence, or sleeping place of one or more human beings.
Great, thank you. That certainly helps. My other observation is that the number of Section 8 units that are available in our area and how they're distributed is something that needs attention, because we have a dearth of those types of funding options for people who are income eligible. So when you think about that, and I'm not sure about this, but it may be that apartment owners may have the right not to accept or have Section 8 units in their properties, not with regard to an individual who's coming in to try and rent, but to simply have any Section 8 units because they're not market rate, or the market rate may conflict with what they're trying to charge for a unit. So one thing I would encourage you to do is look at how many Section 8 units exist in the community, where they are, and if there's a way to try and encourage more of them, so that there's a fair share of housing for people of all income levels in our community.
And that's certainly what we're trying to do with this law, to encourage that. There are not a lot of Section 8 housing, of tenants in the town of Brighton currently using Section 8
because there aren't
vouchers.
A lot of
because
units that have been given.
Because there are a lot of landlords that, for one reason or another, are not accepting.
Right. And I applaud what you're trying to do. I'm just wondering if there might be some other, maybe informal actions that can be taken to work with the landlords in town to see if we can't increase that a bit.
Sure, thank you. I think, it's also important to note there are some exceptions in the definition, in particular, housing duplexes, for example, in which one of the two units is owner-occupied, is accepted as an exclusion from the law, as it is from the other two communities' laws, as well as a situation where you're talking about renting a room or a portion of a single family owner-occupied house. So those exceptions already exist, but otherwise, as Ken noted, the definition is quite broad. Thank you.
I know that.
And it is Old Home Week. Again, I want to note that although the public hearing is closed and your comments won't be part of the record, it's good to welcome former council member Louise Novros. Louise,
I just have two questions. Number one, does this bill include people who are about to sell their houses?
Whether a house is being sold is not.
Yes, I think the answer is yes, so that if somebody were to put up, I think your question is, if somebody were to put up their house for sale, would this local law prohibit the seller or the real estate agent from discriminating against a potential buyer as a result of their source of income? And the answer is yes. It would protect against that discrimination.
In speaking with somebody that I know who has a lot of units, he said that the people that take advantage of Section 8 are working poor. They're not welfare people, they're working poor. And so the amount of their rent, if they can only afford this much rent and the rent goes up this high, that's where they get their money from the government to make up that, so that they're not out that much money simply because they're renting to somebody who doesn't have the full amount each month. But there are all kinds of regulations that have to be met as far as the government is concerned.
That's correct.
With monthly inspections, et cetera.
There certainly are regulations that landlords must comply with when Section 8 housing vouchers are accepted, yes. And the goal, of course, is to make sure, like anybody, that people who are using those vouchers have safe, habitable housing.
Okay.
We have a motion. We're in the midst of discussion. Is there any more discussion among the board? Hearing none, on the motion as amended, I'll ask the deputy clerk to please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Sorry. Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, the final. Oh, a quick break? Okay, sure.
Just 1 minute.
Sure. We just want to make sure our stenographer, who has again been working hard this evening, gets a moment to take a quick break. And I will just very quickly describe while she's doing that the next item, which is the proposed community choice aggregation local law. David, has the necessary legal notice been given in this matter?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Legal notice having been given, I declare this public hearing to be open. Before we, well, let me just first say, this is something that has been considered in committees. We had an original proposed local law last fall. A public hearing was held on it. That local law was actually not consistent with the most recent formats of community choice aggregation local law. And so we closed that public hearing, did not take action on that law, brought back a new law that has been discussed in committee, and there has been a lot of really good discussion about this local law. The community choice aggregation local law is the first step towards the implementation of community choice aggregation, which is a tool that increasingly New York and actually other states are using to further a number of goals, including increased use of renewable energy, increased use of increased availability of distributed energy sources of various kinds, as well as cost savings for typically residential and small business customers based on the ability to aggregate, hence the word aggregation, and generate buying power that way. So we've had that discussion, and again, this first step in the public hearing tonight is on a proposed local law. Now I think it's important to say the proposed local law does not identify an administrator of the plan. The town board will consider taking action on this law tonight, and in an entirely separate process, if and when it chooses to proceed farther down the road towards actual implementation of community choice aggregation, have to take further steps, including the selection of an administrator. So just so that it's clear, and the text of the local law is in tonight's meeting packet, but I wanted to make that clear. I also, Ken, was there something you wanted to say? I wanted to make a disclosure.
No.
Oh, okay. I do want to make a disclosure because it has been the subject of some discussion in committee, and I think, and it's certainly important. I am one of the vice presidents of the New York Association of Towns, which is a voluntary association of over 900 towns in the state of New York. Almost all of the towns in the state of New York are members of the Association of Towns. I serve in that position and previously served as a member of the executive board of the association. Was just recently elected as a vice president at the annual meeting. I serve in that position without compensation. The Association of Towns and NICOM, which is the New York Conference of Mayors, has an agreement with a company that provides services as an administrator of community choice aggregation programs, among other services that company called Good Energy provides. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, the public hearing tonight does not address who will ultimately be the administrator of a community choice aggregation plan in Brighton, only that first step adoption of the local law. Now, based on that, the town attorney has advised that I must disclose the affiliation, my role as a vice president of the Association of Towns, but that because there is no compensation and there is a specific exemption for not-for-profits, that I need not recuse on this matter, on the discussion of the local law. However, the New York State Comptroller does issue opinions concerning elected official recusals based on provisions of the general municipal law. And before we get to a discussion of the appointment of an administrator, I will seek the guidance of the State Comptroller as to whether the position I have as a member of the Association of Towns Board is a prohibited conflict of interest that would require me to recuse myself, and I will, of course, abide by whatever the opinion of the State Comptroller is on that matter. But that's a matter to be addressed at a future day. But we now, this public hearing on the community choice aggregation local law is now open. And if there is anyone that would like to address the board on this matter, please signify by raising your hand. Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's great to see you as a group. Thank you for being here.
All right. Hello, my name is Matthew Yeager. I'm a sophomore at Brighton High School. And we are all activists at Brighton High School. We have helped to implement composting with the help of Impact Earth, which includes us volunteering daily to sort people's garbage and trying to teach other students on how to be clean with their waste. We also support CCA in the community because it is a way to go green, and going green is no longer an option, but a requirement as people of the earth. And as pollution and CO2 levels rise, we endanger the future generations and this planet. By switching to CCA, we are taking a step in the right direction by providing cleaner and cheaper energy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask, and please don't take this in the wrong way, but we've had this discussion at prior meeting. It does help the process move along a little quicker. I'm going to ask that we not have demonstrations of applause, even though these young men and women are, I know, doing a great job, and I'm really glad they're here, or, you know, booing or hissing or any of that, just so we can keep moving along. Thank you so much. Go ahead, sir.
We would like to thank and appreciate town.
And if you could just your name. And
My name is Joseph Kim, and I'm also from Brighton High School. We would like to thank and appreciate Town Supervisor Bill Maley for recognizing us students and our voice valuable, and also what we did today through the national walkout, honoring the victims of shootings in Florida. It means a lot to us, and it encourages us to strive just further and take action. And I would like to start off by saying that it's time for us to stop taking what we call home Earth. I think it's time for us to stop taking it for granted and take action to take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Radesh Singh, and I also go to Brighton High School, and I'm currently a sophomore, and I'm part of the leadership group for a climate club. And as a collective body, we believe that CCA is not only a phenomenal way to save money, but a pivotal step for a community to take in order to make our community more environmentally friendly and leave it in a better condition for not only our generation, but our future generations as well. It is our responsibility as a community as well as a world to make our world a better place, and CCA is a great first step for our community to take at a local level in order to make our community and eventually our world a more environmentally friendly and a safer place to live for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Radesh.
My name is Ayla Spiller, and I am a sophomore at Brighton High School, and I just wanted to make the comment that implementing legislation on the community level about climate change policy and environmental sustainability is so imperative, as that's where effective change happens, and Brighton will, by passing and considering CCA, serves as an example to community members and youth like myself in the school who may not be as aware about the issue, and shows that our community is knowledgeable about this, cares about this, is willing to take action about the detriment that our planet is experiencing right now.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Liam Smith. I'm also a sophomore at Brighton High School. I'd just like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. And well, since August, my fellow Climate Club members and myself have been volunteering at the Brighton Farmers Market and asking Brighton town residents to sign petitions in support of community choice aggregation. This petition reads, "We agree with BHS's Climate Club, and we urge the town of Brighton to switch to a 100% renewable source of energy by utilizing community choice aggregation." These papers carry the weight of 74 Brighton residents who would like our town of Brighton to address the issue of climate change and become a more sustainable place. I repeat, there are 74 names with addresses and emails on this list. Please protect our future and adopt a CCA program that has a 100% renewable energy source. I repeat, the Climate Club would like to have a 100% renewable energy source.
Thank you. And if you give those to the deputy clerk, when we close the public hearing, we'll make sure those that petition is added to the record. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Benny Smith, also with Brighton High School. Supervisor Maley, I appreciate your transparency on the Association of Towns relationship with good energy. I was just wondering, how soon will that be accessible publicly?
How soon will
we be able to get access to that relationship between the Association of Towns and good energy?
Well, I know I believe that the documents. I know you.
Are you saying a copy? You need a copy of the agreement between the Association of Towns and Good Energy?
If that's what you were referencing earlier,
sure.
right?
I don't have any problem sending that
Oh,
to you.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll send it. You have my number?
Yeah.
Give me a call. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Did we get everybody?
Yeah, thank you for having us here tonight. It's been a pleasure talking.
Yes, it has.
We really appreciate all your support for youth activists such as yourselves, because we're the future generation. We really appreciate all your support. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
How can you?
That's okay. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jerry Minard, and I live in Pittsford. But I came to this Brighton Town Board meeting tonight because everyone knows that Brighton, the town of Brighton, is a leader among the towns in Monroe County. It's a fact that my town, Pittsford, and so many of the other towns look up to Brighton as a model. They emulate Brighton. So I'm here to use my voice in support of forward-thinking decisions that are going to be made by the board of Brighton in the future. And just quickly and specifically, in regard to the community choice aggregation plan, I implore you to choose an administrator that deals solely in renewable energy. And in this case, it would be Jules Assets and locally Rochester People's Climate Coalition. Instead of the firm Good Energy, which despite its name offers dirty fossil fuels as part of its supply package. To consider a supplier who provides dirty fossil fuels would be laughable if it wasn't such a serious and environmental altering situation. So just briefly in closing, I contend that if Brighton would retain its standing of wise leadership and good stewardship in Monroe County, if it would select Jules Assets as its administrator for the CCA program. And I implore you to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared. Can I please, and I do have to say again, the subject of this public hearing is the local law. The subject of this public hearing is not the selection of an administrator, which will be done by the town board.
If I could just spend 2 minutes on this issue.
Thanks,
so if the town board, when the town board concludes the public hearing and finishes here, taking all of your input and all the community's input, which is what's going on right now, on whether to adopt the local law, the CCA in the first instance. And if that becomes a local law, then what we will do as the town administration is we will follow our typical procurement policy. We have a standing procurement policy which says that we have to send out a request for proposals to the public, to companies who are interested in becoming the CCA administrator. And then the town board, with staff's assistance, will review those proposals. So at some point in the future, the town board, if CCA becomes a local law, will take up this issue of who to select as a CCA administrator, but that's not at all on the table. And it's not something that the town board would take up without getting both proposals and input from the community on that.
And again, whether or not I'm, whatever the comptroller decides as to whether I'm involved in that, it may be helpful, for example, to have, firms make a presentation at a meeting of the town board or at a meeting of the Public Works Committee.
All of which is
make it as transparent as possible.
All of which is very premature at this point. We
Absolutely.
don't have a local CCA law. We need,
Absolutely.
if we want to get there, folks, we got to get the local law passed first.
That's correct. And sir, please just be seated. Everybody's going to have a chance to talk tonight. Is there anyone else that would like to? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Jess DeLeo. Wow. And I am a resident of Brighton. And I can't really articulate it better than the Brighton High School kids did. They were amazing. But I think the reason why we're talking about CCA is because of renewable energy. So of course you have to pass the local law first. We all know that, but we're kind of assuming that we're hoping and assuming that it's going to, because it just makes sense. Renewable or not, it makes sense, so why would it not pass? So we're hoping, and that's why we're here to also support the local legislation to pass. Obviously, that's the #1 step. We have to do that first. But it's because a lot of people support renewable energy. That's what they want, even though they're not here saying that. If you could choose that, a majority of people would choose that. So if it can be the default method, why would we not have that? So people here, there's so many people here that support that. We want to voice our opinions, and we hope that you're listening to our voices, because we know that there's a process. We respect that process. But all we're saying is that we should have the choice for renewable energy. And if thousands of people in Brighton and Rochester can have that, then why not have that? You can opt in, you can opt out. If you don't want it, you don't have to have it, but the choice should be there. It is what we're going to in the future. That is what we should be having already, and hopefully will happen quicker. And we're just hoping Brighton will be kind of the leaders in this in the Rochester area, that's like, we're doing this now and everyone else should, because as an individual, we can't make that much of an impact, but as a whole community, we can do so much. So we're just asking you to listen to us and hear us and just know that that's what we want. It's just going to better Rochester, it's going to better Brighton, and just in general, it's the best way to go. So,
thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Mike Gordon. I'm with Jewel Assets. We administer these programs, and I will explore with you. First of all, just something about our firm briefly. We focus on the development of energy efficiency in facilities. We focus on supporting the development of renewable generation. And we focus as well on consumer empowerment. That's what we are about as a firm. To credential our firm, we have set up what is still the only community choice aggregator in New York State. And the New York State process is very different than anywhere else around the United States. I can tell you briefly a description is that basically what you are deciding to do is the state designates who the default supplier is, and you are deciding if you then pass the law and then move on community aggregation, you are deciding that the local municipality, the town, will be able to set up that default supplier. That's really what it is that you are doing. Our experience with it in Westchester County is that savings are substantial, but they're modest. I mean, we saved roughly $6.5 million to date in Westchester County, roughly $50, $60, $75 a year per home. We think that's great, but ultimately what is truly powerful is the opportunity to, and actually tomorrow, in the Public Service Commission, we expect to get a decision that will allow us to double the value for communities and guarantee price reductions versus the utility rate for 20 years for entirely renewable generation, 100% community distributed generation. And that is, we will be authorized as a firm. We have really cautiously dealt with the Department of Public Service to make sure that any risks that they felt were of concern to them were addressed in our proposal. And so we expect that Jewel will be authorized tomorrow to provide renewable generation as the default supply. with, again, 10, 15, 20 years of guaranteed savings versus the utility rate for consumers. Having said that, it's critically important in New York State to know exactly what RG&E is going to send out and what they are required to send out before it actually hits your homes in the mail, and to understand exactly how community choice aggregation works in New York State. And I'm happy to sit here and, we certainly will come back, no problem. But I'm also happy as well to answer any questions about the rollout in Westchester County, which is the only operating, and about the operations in Westchester County, perhaps about the development of community choice aggregation in New York State, which has been a critical focus of our firm as well. So I'm just, I'm here to, I'll answer any questions you got, or none.
And I appreciate the time you took to speak, not only with me, and your team at Jewel, but also with the supervisors of Pittsford and Irondequoit. I do appreciate that.
I had one question. My understanding is that we are yet to reach critical mass of the number of residents or potential customers that this would actually be implemented. When might we see that critical mass, the critical number of residences or customers be reached?
That's a great question. What we are doing, we're going to be issuing a bid for 1 billion kilowatt hours in the first half of 2018. Critical mass is about 200 million kilowatt hours, so we're there. You're working with many of the other firms around, many of the other municipalities around the state to actually create that critical mass. Our experience is you want to be able to open it up to some of the local suppliers, and you also want some of the big folks to be able to play. And you also want to designate, have the clout to designate just a consumer empowering contract. So somewhere between that 200 million and billion kilowatt hours allows you to separate it out and involve some of the local suppliers, and as well has that critical mass so that you get exactly that contract structure that you want to not just save money, but also to create a consumer empowering contractual structure.
So how many other towns need to implement this to be able to?
We're already there. We're already there, yeah. And 1 billion kilowatt hours will be about 110,000 homes.
And when you say we're already there, that's through your work with the Westchester?
No, new towns that are engaged for this new RFP. So Westchester County is 110,000 homes, and we are now at another 100,000 homes engaged for this first half of 2018 bid.
Okay.
So we're ready to rock. We're there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ken, I'm sorry, did you?
Question.
Sure.
The town board, through committees and else, has heard from a number of the members of the Rochester People's Climate Coalition in support of passing and putting in place this local CCA law. I was wondering, in the interest of full disclosure, as Supervisor Maley has talked about the agreement between the Association of Towns and Good Energy, if you could enlighten us on the memorandum of understanding between your company, Jewel, and the Rochester People's Climate Coalition.
Thank you. So we sent, when you asked for it, we sent a copy of that agreement to the several towns, to the 3 towns. There's no quote-unquote obligation, but we have a philosophy as a firm. So roughly an administrator in the market takes roughly $10 a home per year to administer a program. And we actually take a bit less than that. We take roughly $6.50 per home to administer a program. And our philosophy as a firm is that rather than hire $9 an hour folks who are working for the energy supplier who really are, who knows where they are, we believe that half of that $650 should go to a local organization which is then trained to communicate about the critical challenges around developing local renewable generation. And so the Memorandum of Understanding, as we have sent it to the town, outlines an intent to do exactly that, which is to take the $650 and to split it and have that be locally administered with a local group. Probably it means one employee. And basically, I can tell you that the motivation of RPCC in my observation has been really to have the resources, just a person, to explain this from the perspective of locality, of the local issues. That's our goal as a firm. That's what we're all about. And that's fully disclosed, and we sent a copy of that agreement over to the town.
And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. My name is Michael Scott. My wife Kelly and I live at 54 Laconia Parkway in Brighton. The purpose of government, it's sometimes said, is to advance the common good. And clearly, doing something about the destruction of our climate is in the common good. I think most people would also agree that reducing costs for residents is also in the common good. The beauty of community choice aggregation is that it has the potential to bring together those two motivations and to allow us to flip the default energy usage in our town from dirty fossil fuels to clean renewable energy. Eventually, probably pretty soon, renewable energy will be cheaper to buy than dirty fossil fuel energy, but we're not quite there yet. We have the possibility with CCA of reducing costs and switching to renewable energy now. There is some chance that with a CCA, we could also choose to further reduce dollar costs at the moment by buying dirty fossil energy in bulk. It would be, in my opinion, a true tragedy if we did that. We would miss out on an opportunity to do the right thing now. And while I realize that the question of sourcing the energy is not on the table tonight, I do hope that all of you will keep in mind how much the community looks to you and depends on you to do the right thing here, and when the time comes, to select an energy supplier that is 100% renewable. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Gerdot, 12 Cardiff Park. My wife and I have had solar panels for almost 8 years now. We generate roughly 4 megawatts a year and sell back roughly 2 megawatts per year, megawatt hours. Just briefly, we're in full support of CCA and the renewable energy options. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, is that Mary in the back there?
Hi, my name is Mary Lupian, and I live in the city of Rochester. And I had a whole speech about how important it was to pick Jewel, but I'll save that. But just point out that, most of us here are in favor of CCA only if it's renewable. And if CCA is implemented to make dirty energy cheaper, that goes against the entire reason that the Rochester People's Climate Coalition brought this issue to the forefront in the first place. And so to consider giving yourselves the permission to implement a CCA apart from it being connected to renewable energy is difficult to breach. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Hi,
Mr. Supervisor. My name is Peter Debs with the Rochester Regional Group of the Sierra Club. We're a very large environmental organization in this area with over 3,000 members. And pretty much universally, we are in support of Brighton's actions in the past that have shown a real commitment to making change ecologically and environment. And we think this is a great opportunity that you have before you. And one point I would like to just bring out that maybe isn't often thought about is the artificially low price of fossil fuels, because those things are supporting they're causing environmental damage. It is not really going into the cost. And part of all the destruction we've seen this year with hurricanes and storms is a result of that. And so it's being paid for out of other monies. So we think this move towards renewable energy is a big step in the right direction.
Thank you. In the back. I can't see who that is, but yes, come on.
Hello, everybody. My name is Teresa McGowan, and I live at 96 Westland. And I can't add anything to what's been said. The students certainly gave voice to the urgency, and other people have mentioned, I think, everything that's very important. I have a letter here that I will give to you. I don't need to read it, but I would like to say that, of course, CCA is a no-brainer, and I agree with Mrs. Meinert that Brighton is a leader, and that's one of the reasons my husband and I moved here. And we look to you for that. And I think with CCA, the issue has to be 100% renewable. It has to be the default plan. And I support Jewel as well. And we have a responsibility to our children and our grandchildren. So, thank you.
And we'll accept this communication as well as part of the record tonight. Yes, sir, come up.
My name is John Waddick, and I'm a trustee of the Village of Lima, Livingston County. I thank you for the honor to let me address you tonight, and I also thank you for letting me plug in my car out there in that nice free charger.
By the way, I'll put a plug in because I'm wearing my lapel pin. That charger out there is the result of a grant from the Brighton Rotary Club, primarily. So
fantastic. You know, just listening here before I get into my remarks about CCA, you have a wonderful community here. To see the outpouring and the caring that is here, the openness of this board and the way that you conduct yourselves, it is absolutely a model, like someone had said. You have a terrific town. So, thank you. About a year ago, the Village of Lima started the process that you are engaging in now of taking a look at community choice aggregation. We have a little bit different political landscape down in Livingston County. It's pure red, okay? This is where President Trump carried easily. It's the home of a lot of climate change skeptics, including on our village board. Well, somehow with all those dynamics politically, the Village of Lima became the first municipality in the Rochester area to pass CCA legislation. And not only that, we signed on an 18-month agreement with Jewel Assets and RPCC. Not only to do CCA, but to be committed to a sharing of cost savings and working toward 100% renewable. So how did that happen? Well, one of the things is we talked about the localness of support of something like this. And every step of the way, RPCC was there. They came to our hometown days. They came to board meetings, talked to highly skeptical people. We're very knowledgeable. Jewel Assets came down, came to our public hearing. okay? This whole process of CCA is predicated on education and outreach to the community. You have a lot of people here voicing support for 100% renewable, but the folks who aren't here tonight, you've got skeptics in your town as well, as we do. So we've really just begun this process. To really bring this to fruition, it's going to take a lot of education, and we feel RPCC and Jewel Assets is the best way to make this happen. Thanks.
Oh, well, I just want to see if there's anyone that hasn't already spoken. I see someone in the back there, and then you, Sandy. Yeah.
Susan.
If you can come on up to the mic so everybody can hear you at home.
I came here not really planning to speak tonight. I don't have any notes or anything. My name is Susan Spinelli. And I live on East River Road on a half an acre that I lovingly call the Spinelli Bird Sanctuary and Backyard Wildlife Refuge, because I have all sorts of animals, but I'm like a mile from shopping and everything in College Town. So great neighborhood. I love Brighton. My late husband and I bought the house there 5 years ago, and I'm glad to live in Brighton. I'm proud to be a Brightonite or whatever. Brightonian?
Brightonian.
I was waiting to see if anybody did speak from the Sierra Club, because I am a member of the Sierra Club, and I got a communication from them about tonight's meeting and how important the CCA would be to the local area for a number of reasons. I went to college in the 60s and back when we started the first Earth Day, and I've been a recycler since then, practically anally. I go on vacation and I bring home things, and my husband used to say, "Why are you bringing trash home?" And I told him, "I'm bringing it home so it's not going to be trash, babe. You know, just get used to it because it's part of me." You know, so there's a lot of organizations now that are working on the environment from various different directions and different philosophies. I belong to the Genesee Valley Conservancy, the Genesee Land Trust, the Trust for Public Land, as well as the Sierra Club, and a couple other organizations about human rights. I like the choice aspect of the CCA, and I like the environmental aspect of it, how we can work towards renewable energy, and I just think it's a really good idea, and we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy.
This was the real reason I came tonight. I do support this. I've had an opportunity to learn about CCA, and I think it is a good approach for our community. And so I applaud you for doing this. It builds on our long environmental proactive approach in this community that the residents believe in. One thing that I would observe is that everyone here knows what we're talking about. People in the community don't necessarily know what community aggregation is really about, what it means for them, what their choices or options will be. Will they be obliged to participate or not? And I think having an information program, and whether it's on the website or at a public information meeting, will really be important in order to garner that community support for people to participate.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
And it's not going to be an or, it's going to be an and.
Everything.
Because the process, because you are absolutely right. This is a process that, I appreciate there are so many people here as familiar as you all are with CCA. At one level, it's a simple concept, and another level, it's a very layered concept, and there's no question educating the community is going to be very important, and we're going to have to use an all-hands effort.
Yeah, and I think there'll be a lot of questions in the community. I mean, one point that was raised was how the administrators get paid, and what relationship does that have to the cost of energy for you, the homeowner, or the small business? You know, another is, it sounds too good to be true. If that's the case, Are there downsides? And if so, what are they? What happens if an energy source has some kind of devastating problem, you know, solar or wind that's damaged or destroyed in really bad weather? And we've seen a lot of that. What's the backup? So there'll be a lot of questions in the community that I think have to be answered for people to not only understand which choice will be best as the administrator, but also, do I want to participate myself? Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy. Yes, in the back. Oh, you all right? Do you, can maybe...
We can bring the mic.
We have a portable microphone.
The microphone is portable.
Yeah, let's bring that mic back.
Don't get stiff necks. Okay. Anyway, I'm...
If you can hold it up to your...
Wilcox. Closer?
Perfect.
Aha. Okay. Theodore Wilcox. I live in Rochester, but I'm just across the border, and there's no wall. And and I suffer under something which is wonderful that a lot of you also suffer under. We have a lot of trees on our property. And so in order to have renewable energy, I have to be involved in some sort of community project. I've actually subscribed to Sun Common, just not to give them a plug, but that's true. One thing that occurs to me in this discussion is that perhaps you should say that the CCA program that you want is one which leads to 100% renewable energy sources for the community. We do things like, I can't get in the little electric cars, but we do have a air pump now, heat pump, air-based heat pump. Okay, got all those words in, and you can sort them into the right order. And so anyway, but it doesn't do any good at all if that energy is from a fossil fuel. If my electric energy is fossil fuel, I could have saved some money. And so the point is that perhaps it should be in there. The other little remark is that, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't get into details on this, but there is something called a B corporation, where the corporation is not only beholden to the stockholders, but they have some public interest benefit that they are promoting, whether it's a search engine that plants trees, or an aggregator who wants to make it 100% energy. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, so it might be possible that that ought to be a requirement, that they ought to have something in their rules that says that they really have to do what they say they want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Is there anyone else that would like to, Sue? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sue Hughes Smith, Brighton resident, Edgewood Avenue, 453. I wasn't going to get up and say anything today, but since it's the month we're recognizing persistence, I thought I would take the opportunity. And thank you again for doing the community choice aggregation. I was eagerly awaiting the law, so I hope I didn't bother you too much with my phone calls. It looks great. I really like the language around distributed energy resources. I really hope that's a priority for us and for our community, and I know you know that's the right thing to do. So we very much look forward to any more opportunities to speak with you. The Rochester People's Climate Coalition has been transparent and forward about the fact that we formed a partnership with Dual Assets 2 years ago because we shared values. And we knew they had expertise that we did not have, and that has been a part of our presentation every time we speak, is we acknowledge that we have this relationship to share administrative work and administrative costs. And the other piece that we always say is what's important is how we implement CCA, not if we implement CCA. And I think other people have spoken to that very clearly this evening, so I won't belabor the point. But we look forward to any other opportunities to speak with you. In 2017, we gave over 75 presentations to over 2,000 people. Those are in faith institutions. They were right here at the public library. We had 85 people turn out for that here in Brighton. So it's something we're comfortable doing. It's something we feel is really important and will be essential to moving us forward on implementing various opportunities that CCA can offer us. So thank you for your time and thank you for your diligence on this law.
Thank you, Sue. I'm not sure if it was, did you have a PowerPoint that you were hoping to?
My son was hoping to do a PowerPoint to you this evening on a different issue.
Oh, okay.
On carbon taxation. So
okay. Well,
it looks like we'll reschedule for a couple weeks from now. Okay. But yeah, sorry about the confusion on that.
That's fine. I was going to say if you had a PowerPoint on this, that even though the equipment setup was going to be problematic, it can be submitted separately as part of the record, but it
I do
like
have one. If you'd like it, I'm happy to send it to you.
Since I asked, I know. Thank you, Sue. Yes, in the back.
Hello, my name is Andrea Porter. I'm from Irondequoit. Didn't expect to talk tonight. Love Brighton, love color Brighton green, love people in Brighton. I'm part of a group trying to get CCA in our own town, hoping a domino effect. So I'm sitting back here hoping you make the decision and it kind of rolls into all the other towns. We've used RPCC to educate ourselves, to educate our community. We've had things at our I-Square. We've had things in our town. We've just presented to the Conservation Board. We've watched them improve their PowerPoints. When we've had questions, they've designed other things to help us. They're so local, they're so here, they're so helpful. If one person's not there, another person's there. We've sent others to go to their other presentations. They're really amazing. So domino effect, we're hoping you make the right decisions, and so helping all of our other towns around you make the right decisions. Sandy Frankel mentioned education. We've got it. You know, we have the right people. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Chelsea Hunt again, 155 Winter Greenway, and I'll keep it short again. CC is a really good idea, and so is 100% renewable with dual assets.
Thank you. Is there any? Yeah, I was going to say, before you do, I just want to make sure, is there anybody that hasn't spoken yet that wants to speak?
This is not something that no one has really touched on yet, but having the avenue to support locally generated energy as well. So with Joule, there could potentially be different projects to actually have locally generated energy. So again, we have Brighton's Farmers Market, Shop Local, the Small Business Saturday. We're doing all of these things to support local businesses, so why not also support locally generated energy?
Thank you.
Jess DeLeo, 59 Westerlo Ave.
Sir.
Robert Putney, 55 Dartford Road, here in the town of Brighton. I'm the, wow, I don't really need a microphone, so.
No, please do.
I know, okay.
So the folks at home.
Let's take a step back then. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Impact Earth. So for those that don't know what Impact Earth is, we are a zero waste solutions company based at RIT. and we work here in Brighton with the Brighton School District. So they're the first school district in Monroe County and in upstate New York, the first public school to go zero waste. So I'm going to take this angle. More importantly, I'm a father of 6 children here, 4 of which are still in the district. So I get a chance to work with my kids every day, which is kind of cool. I don't think they think that, but I'm going to take a slightly different angle here and keep my comments very short. From a zero waste perspective, CCA is the way to go, only if it's 100% renewable. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Come on up.
I'm Herman Vogelstein, 364 Hemingway Drive. I really hadn't planned on speaking. There are a lot of people here whom I know who are much more knowledgeable about this than I am, but I just want to speak for a moment because I think there are probably a lot of people in my situation. I have, for a number of years, wanted to do the right thing and change entirely to renewable energy for all my energy needs. However, I live alone. I don't have a very high gas bills, and it really didn't make economic sense for me to invest in all the upfront costs to install solar. And then I was delighted when I heard at an RPCC presentation about CCA, and I thought this is perfect because I don't have the upfront costs. It will actually save me money on my bills, and I get to live with green energy, with renewable energy, which is something I really, really want to do because I consider it as important for the reasons that you know about. So I think there must be quite a few other people in a similar situation that would like to do that, but for whom it doesn't make economic sense to do it on an individual basis, and therefore I ask you to approve CCA and to go with renewable energy.
Thanks, Mr. Vogelstein. Louise.
Yes, I just have one question. Having Louise Novros, Seminole Way, having been on the board before, I know how things work, and you said that when it comes time to vote or to hire somebody to be our administrator, you have to go through an RFP. And usually when you go through an RFP, you have to take the cheapest, the least expensive option. Is that going to be considered in this case?
That's not accurate at all, actually. So for an RFP, a request for proposal for professional services, the town looks at all of the issues. Cost, of course, is an issue to be looked at, but it's not the only issue, and it does not dictate the result. Quality, renewable energy, a company with experience, a company who can help the town meet the goals that it sets in the CCA. Those are all very important factors. It's the same process we would go through if we hire any other professional, whether it's an engineer or an architect or a consultant. So hiring a CCA administrator goes through the RFP process. I think what you're confused with is when we have a bidding process, when we put out for bids under the general municipal law, we have to take the lowest responsive bidder. The CCA administrator will not be under that provision of law. It'll be under the RFP or the request for proposal, which does allow us to, if we find somebody who is better, who is a little pricier, we can make that decision.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Good question, though, Louise. Really clarify
Is
that.
there anyone else that would like to, again, let me just see if there's, yes.
My name is Melissa Carlson. I'm with Rochester People's Climate Coalition. To address that last point, the municipality won't be spending any money.
And that's true too. But we do look at the cost to the consumer, right? So.
Mr. Gordon, yes.
Yeah. Just to give you some numbers.
Again, if you would just.
Sure, you got it. Into Mike Gordon. Just to give you some numbers, Brighton itself can be responsible for 2018-2019 development of 30 megawatts of solar capacity that is local in the next year, year and a half, and that should we create critical mass locally, we are going to be ensuring the development in 2018-2019 of 100 megawatts of solar generation that would not otherwise be built.
Thank you.
One more conflict of interest question I need to ask you. To my knowledge, there's no familial relationship between us at all, although we share the same last name. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Sandy, sure.
There are two programs, one for the community and one that the local government can consider for itself. What you're proposing, as I understand it, is for the community,
correct,
not for the local government as a business-type entity, if you will.
That's correct. The CCA, and there are under law and regulations restrictions on the types of utility customers that can participate in the CCA, primarily residential and small business customers. There, with respect to municipal purchasing, the town and a number of other municipalities in Monroe County and nearby areas are part of an existing local coalition consortium.
Right.
There are other groups out there that are possible consortium organizers, if you will, for municipalities themselves. But you're right, the CCA would be for our residential and some small business customers to participate.
Okay, so is that something that you're going to want to look at, or not really at the moment?
Well, again, we are currently in the existing consortium. Yeah. The Association of Towns has had a separate consortium that the town, and this is something that our finance department, among others, have looked at over time, and partly for some billing related. One of the great things about the existing consortium that we're in is the format of the billing, which ties very nicely into the many different sub-accounts that the town has, for each lighting district, for this building, for that building, and the other. It is my understanding that Association of Towns consortium is now under a different management, and it may well make sense for us to look at it again in the future, but we are currently, through the existing consortium, paying less than retail,
right,
for our power needs. But at the same time, the question of a consortium being a source of fully renewable power is something that we need to look at as well for the town.
Super. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else?
Supervisor, I have a couple matters I'd like to bring to the board's attention as part
Sure.
of the public hearing.
As part of the public hearing?
As part of the public hearing. As the board may or may not know, and I want to make sure that the community does know, the draft of the local law that was presented to the town, we have taken predominantly from what was presented, but we have changed a couple things, and I want to bring those to the board's attention to highlight them. First, in discussions with the board, it was apparent that the benefits of the CCA program would be primarily realized by those households which are considered default consumers under the program. But the thought was that the benefits of the program ought to also be made available to those customers who might not be default consumers under the program. And so when the noticing and information goes out under the proposed local law that has been drafted for this board's consideration, the noticing would go not just to the default consumers about how they would opt out if they so chose, but also to the non-default consumers as to how they would be allowed to opt in because they're not automatically included in the program. Secondarily, I think the board expressed some concern, and there was some discussion in committee about what would happen administratively and fee-wise or penalty-wise if somebody did opt out, and the board wanted to make sure that there would not be a penalty on that household for opting out. And so we've added some language to strengthen that provision to make sure that there is no penalty or administrative cost or fee of any sort that would be imposed. And then finally, we've thought, well, once you opt out and you realize what you're missing out on, you might want to opt back in. And so we wanted to make sure that the education and noticing that went out to consumers also talked about that. How do you get back in once you're out? And so those changes have been made and added to, if you're keeping score at home, Section 5 of the proposed local law, to sort of take what was an excellent draft and maybe make it just a little bit better. So I wanted to bring that to the board's attention as well. Now, having said that, I will then immediately tell you how I did a poor job at catching all of the changes that I think should have been made. And so I was, as we were sitting here listening to the comments and I was going over this local law and looking at it, I was looking at the authorizing paragraphs, which are sort of the key paragraphs of the local law that say what the town is doing by adopting the CCA, if it so chooses. And it says, and I'll read from Section 1, Paragraph B, this chapter establishes the authority for the town of Brighton in connection with the implementation of a CCA program to acquire...
See the word "of" missing.
Yeah, "of" is missing. To acquire utility data, to select through competitive solicitation energy suppliers on behalf of default consumers within the jurisdiction. It does nothing to authorize the board to select an ESCO or an administrator for non-default consumers. So that language, that word default, probably should be amended to reflect the word participating consumers, which is another defined term under the local law, which would be more accurate for what I think the board
Yes,
intends.
you're right. I'm looking at that definition. You're absolutely right.
So I would suggest, if and when you are ready to take action, that you look at that, making that change to the local law as well.
Thanks, Ken. Good catch. And to that point, it would be my recommendation, and we've had a lot of great input, and I really appreciate it. I'm certainly looking forward to adopting a local law. I'm going to suggest that tonight, unless there is anybody else, and want to give everybody that option, particularly after hearing the changes that Ken just mentioned, that might want to speak, I'm going to suggest that we close the public hearing and plan to take action on adopting a local law at our next board meeting on the 28th.
And if I may just make an alternative suggestion at your pleasure, you could also keep the public hearing open and then take further comments if the board was inclined to do that.
We certainly can do that, but still take action on the 28th.
Correct. I don't know what the board's pleasure is on that. if the board feels they need more input, or if the board is satisfied with the input it received and
Got a
just
lot of
wants
great
to
input tonight.
have an opportunity to review all that input and review the text and the changes.
You know, unless someone thinks there's really something that was missed tonight, I guess I'd be inclined to close the public hearing, but I don't feel strongly either way. Robin, I know.
Can we entertain other options, namely to change the language that the town attorney has called out and pass with that change?
Tonight you're suggesting. I think the reason I'm suggesting at the next meeting, I believe we need to do seeker reviews. You know, I mean presumably a neg deck, but there is work that would need to be done as part of the adoption of a local law. You know, that frankly, anticipating we were going to hear from a lot of people tonight, we wanted to wait on. But I would encourage that we get all that and take action at our next board meeting.
Right, I would echo that. Although I think substantively we are where we need to be in terms of the local law itself. Procedurally, there's a couple things that need to be done to make sure that when we do act on this local law that it's enforceable, and those procedural mechanisms either haven't been completed or we're just too soon to complete them. Some things under town law that include the amount of time that needs to pass after the entire new draft is in front of the town board, and I don't think it's quite ripe for adoption.
So should we,
at this meeting?
To accommodate that, should we keep the public hearing open?
I don't think it's necessary to keep the public hearing open. What I don't think would be wise is to take action tonight because I worry about whether that law would be enforceable.
And we clearly need to take the seeker neg deck.
And we have to also have a secret determination made.
Correct.
I don't want to presume what that's going to be, but a secret determination does need to be made. Yep. And I know that our environmental liaison officer Ramsey Boehner has not yet issued that negative declaration. So I just think that there's some procedural things that we need to clean up, make sure, and then we can also clean up the language there. And although I was doing my utmost to make sure I didn't miss anything here, there might be other language
But nothing
changes.
in those changes is so substantive as to require more public hearing. I certainly didn't.
I don't think so. I don't think so, no.
Okay. Then, I mean, I understand that the desire to try to act as quickly as possible, but I think more importantly is to make sure that we have acted in strict compliance with all of the applicable laws. So I am going to, unless I hear someone strongly feel that we need to keep the public hearing open, I'm going to suggest that we close the public hearing and plan on taking action, including the requisite secret determination at our next town board meeting.
I would like to keep the public hearing open.
Okay, fine.
I see no reason not to keep the public hearing open. And as anxious as I am, and in the sense as I have the rest of the board, that we're all anxious to implement CCA. We have an attorney for a reason, and when he tells me he'd like some time to work a bit more on it and iron out some of the language, since I am an attorney, I've done that more than once. I'm in favor of putting it over until the 28th.
Then we'll keep the
And I'm not an attorney, but I believe in doing things right the first time. which we pride ourselves in Brighton.
And the hearing...
I just want everybody to know, I want to vote for this, okay? Don't worry about it.
Mr. Gordon, again, I saw some, would you like to speak while we're still open? Okay.
Oh, that, Mr. Gordon.
That was,
Gordon.
yes.
Just about that specific change. This has nothing to do with keeping the hearing open or not.
I was interested in what you might have to say on that.
Yeah, so the state agency, basically the documents that you're working for, the state agency hired Jewel to actually prepare those documents. And I have to look at specifically where you are opening it up to. You need no law to serve folks who are free market at all. The opt-out, you've got to be very cautious about the opt-out language when you change that language, that the opt-out language does not refer to a broader constituency than default. Because if it does, it'll invalidate the law.
And understand, and just to set your mind at ease, the definition of default consumer has not been changed from the original draft.
Got it.
The only thing that was changed relative to the default, non-default issue was who gets notice? Who does the administrator have to send notice out to in the first instance? Is it just the default consumers? Does everybody get a notice in the community so they can opt out or opt in or opt back in if they opt out?
Yeah,
because the non-default customers, it's important that they get notice because they are in some other, we want to make sure that everyone
and part of
has all the information needed, whether to stay in on a default basis or make an affirmative decision to join in.
Part of the reasoning, and I think you'll agree with me on this, is that you do need to try to maximize participation in order to make this work.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the whole opt-out idea. That's why only opt-out programs have worked around the country, because opt-in programs don't economically work. Here, we're going to have an opt-out program, but why not push it out, if we can, to opt-in folks too?
Perfect. Right. We dealt with communities that went both ways, and we're happy to advise on even without being hired, we're happy to advise on the implications of, different language changes as well.
Thank you. Then if there are no further comments, we will keep the public hearing open. It will resume at our next town board meeting on the 28th, but I would simply, and Tim, you can pass the message on to Ramsey. I know he'll be prepared and will handle all of the seeker and other procedural work and anticipate acting on this local law at the next meeting. Thank you, everybody, for attending. You're welcome to stay, but don't feel obligated. And thank you to our stenographer as well for...
Thank you very much.
So those kids that spoke? Debate or amendments during the actual resolution.
If you wanted to hang or whatever. And then there's a Sierra guy.
Supervisor.
We both looked at each other like, who's this guy? Actually, you know what? So I got him too. And then,
very good.
Yeah, I'll break
We're just going to take a moment here while folks are leaving the room.
I'm standing up.
Likewise.
Are you friends? Son lives in Victor. My younger boy moved there.
Okay, can we resume here? Next item are communications, and we have a lot tonight. Can I have a motion to receive and file the communications that are listed here?
So moved.
Second?
We have a number of communications relating to the proposed Whole Foods Plaza. I'm always pleased to get these. We've been talking about our students a lot. And each semester I come out and speak to the law and government class at the high school. And as part of the law and government class, they are required to reach out and communicate with a government official, anything from a town official up to the President of the United States, I guess. And a number of them each year, and I do, I appreciate, choose to reach out to me with their inquiries. Those are all included here tonight, and they relate to issues as diverse as street and highway conditions and sidewalks, street lighting, street signage. There really is a theme, and an awful lot of them do relate to infrastructure, streets, sidewalks, street lighting kinds of issues.
Stop signs.
Stop signs. Yeah, absolutely. And we have taken action in the past based on the student comments. I've forwarded a couple of them on to senior staff to address, and as always, I'll respond to each one of them, and some of them will be able to give them some concrete information. Correspondence, really more, the correspondence itself is very brief, but the decision of the Supreme Court, Acting Supreme Court Justice Daniel Barrett, relating to the lawsuit brought by the town of Brighton, the town of Pittsford, and the town of Perrington versus the State Power Authority and the State Canal Corporation. Many of you read about that lawsuit, the plans of the Canal Corporation to clear cut approximately 155 acres of trees along the Erie Canal in an area that started in Orleans County in Medina, eastward to Perrington. And they had started that work, and the towns of Perrington, Pittsford, and Brighton chose to take a stand. There had been no environmental compliance. It had been initially declared as what is called a Type 2 action under seeker, and I don't want to get all technical about it, but Type 2 action really means you don't have to do anything. And that clearly, for a 155-acre clear cut of a resource as valuable as the canal, simply shouldn't fly, and the court, in fact, made that decision that it would not, that the Canal Corp and the Power Authority had not properly complied with seeker. So they have continued an injunction in place against work on this project. I don't know whether the Canal Corp and the Power Authority will appeal that decision, but I hope they don't. What instead I hope they do is recognize that complying with seeker is part of their obligation as a state agency, and that they begin that process. And part of that process is the consideration of different alternatives. So that's where that is at, but that's what this communication relates to. And I want to go back, because there's one that we never like to see. but after phenomenal service to the town, our Commissioner of Public Works, Sewer Commissioner, and Highway Superintendent Tim Keefe has communicated to us his plans to retire. And we'll think about accepting your request to retire, Tim. We will honor you more formally in the future, but I just want to say we are receiving and filing this communication tonight, and you have done yeoman's duty big time for the town, but more importantly, for the people of Brighton. When I talk about getting these letters and forwarding them on to the department heads, an awful lot of the time that department head is named Tim Keefe. And I hear back from them, not in a few days, sometimes in a few minutes. And then I hear back from the resident, and they said, it's done, it's finished, you fixed it. Thank you, Tim, for that. Thank you for your service.
It's been my pleasure. And if this were the subject of a motion before the board, that we accept this retirement, I think that motion would die for lack of a second. Thank you, Chris. And thanks for your service. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
We have a motion to receive and file those communications. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, David, please call the roll.
Council members Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye.
Jim stepped out. So
oh, okay. All right. We'll give Jim the opportunity in a moment. Since we're talking about Tim Keefe as a great department head, I just want to take the opportunity, since everybody's attention is focused at that table, to introduce the town's new finance director. But maybe reintroduce the town's new finance director is the correct term, because Paula Parker served Brighton previously a number of years ago as finance director. Paula is back, and we welcome you.
Thank you. I'm back.
Paula Parker. Okay, Jim, we just voted on receiving and filing the communications.
All right, I vote aye.
Thank you. We'll move on then to our committee reports. Robin, Community Services.
The Community Services Committee did not meet in the intervening time frame. The next Community Services Committee meeting will be on Wednesday, March 21st at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside School, 220 Idlewood Road. As always, we welcome members of the public to join us.
Thanks, Robin. Finance Committee. Jason is not here. I don't know whether, okay.
The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, March 6th, 2018 at 3:30 p.m. Items of discussion were an equipment lease and trade-in from the Public Works Department. The FAST discussed with Everett Garcia his request to the town board for authorization of the supervisor to enter into a lease agreement for a wide format plotter, along with the authorization to declare as surplus and trade in one wide format copier. The FAST recommends that the town board take favorable action on this matter. The next meeting of the Finance Committee will be on Tuesday, March 20th at 3:30 p.m. at Town Hall. And we welcome members of the public to attend.
Thanks, Robin. Public Safety Committee.
Public Safety met yesterday at 8 o'clock here in the auditorium. And at that time, under old business, we received the update on the special events by Chief Henderson. One was Indian Landing School, which is next month, right?
That's right.
We were talking about the update on special events that you did yesterday. Indian Landing School, we got a matter going on the 4th.
Event, yeah.
I'm sorry?
The bicycle event that we talked about?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And we have the River Challenge coming up on the 21st of April, and also the Lilac 5 and 10K, which will be going on, what, the 20th of May. And under new business, we had the review of the East Avenue Rehabilitation Project, same discussion we had tonight, which we would really advocate that the state consider adopting the Monroe County specifications on that. Also, in the next item was the Brighton School District. At Council Rock School, we had a good discussion about the modification and expansion of that Council Rock School going forward, and that project will begin next year. And look forward to working with the school on that. And that basically covered it. So our next town Public Safety Committee meeting will be Tuesday, April 10th in the lower level community meeting room at that time, right here in Brighton Town Hall. Okay?
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Chris, Public Works.
Public Works met last week, March 6th, and one of the items of discussion was the Blossom Road sanitary sewer project, which is a major project, and the committee discussed the necessity for night work given the traffic volume on that roadway. And that'll continue to be the subject of our discussion, because night work obviously causes some difficulties, but that's a major project and has to be completed. We had a very thorough presentation by the school district regarding the Council Rock School project. As Jim mentioned, we've got a lot of different town constituencies that have to be consulted, both the public safety, where I participated, as well as Public Works. But that's going to be a very extensive project, going to continue on for some 27 months, I believe is what the construction schedule is. And at the same time, they intend to keep the school open all during that time. So it's going to be difficult to coordinate, and there's going to be a lot of neighborhood meetings and communication with the neighborhoods about how they will be impacted and what they're going to do to minimize that impact. But we're all looking forward to updating the school and full-day kindergarten. I understand that's what they're going to do to make that possible. The East Avenue Rehabilitation Project, and Nick Wilt's presentation tonight was also made at that meeting. And again, I know I feel strongly that I would like to see a full-size bike lane on the sides of that road, maintained as a bike lane, not as a shoulder. And that was discussed, and the conflicting standards, both for the state, which insists upon 11-foot center lane, whereas the county, which has 10-foot center lanes. So we're hopeful that we can get some movement by the state in that. And the next meeting for Public Works will be April 3rd at 9 o'clock, and we look forward to the public attending.
Thank you. New business. Robin, reading and approval of the claims.
Certainly. Earlier today, I reviewed claims in the amount totaling $337,400.19. Notable claims include one to Monroe County in the amount of $58,974.64 for electric service through the Monroe County Energy Consortium. In addition, a claim to New York State Justice Court Fund in the amount of $35,042.25 for January 2018 court fines and fees to be remitted to the State of New York Justice Court Fund, and a claim to Davidson Fink LLP in the amount of $12,334.79 for legal services provided to the Assessor's Department. And finally, a claim to Waste Management in the amount of $69,932.22 for garbage and refuse collection services for the refuse districts for 1 month that is under contract. I move that we review and file and accept the claims.
Can I have a second? Discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Chris.
Next matter is to authorize the supervisor to execute a lease to purchase agreement with Eastern Management Solutions for a wide format plotter to be used in the Department of Public Works. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Discussion, as Robin just noted, this was discussed in finance. Hearing none, David, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. We have a couple of resolutions all relating to disposal of different assets. I'll let you, Robin, handle all of those.
There we go.
One at a time.
On the matter regarding approval to declare a certain fixed asset in the Assessor's Department determined to be no longer serviceable or with any remaining value as surplus and disposed of as junk, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And this is the kiosk, yes. The old kiosk outside the assessor's office. It's now over 10 years old, and yeah, it's pretty antiquated. Discussion on that? Hearing none, Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye.
And the next matter, on the approval to declare certain fixed assets in the Information Technology Department determined to be no longer serviceable or with any remaining value as surplus and disposed of as junk, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is a variety of computer equipment, routers, servers, network storage device, all under this single action. Any discussion? Hearing none, Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye.
And next, on the matter to approve to dispose of certain surplus computer-related items through the eBay auction services that have been determined to be obsolete and no longer able to support our operations, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And these are anticipated to have value, but again, are computer devices, firewalls, and network switches. Discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Jim.
Next item is to authorize supervisor to execute an amendment to the agreement with New York State DOT for snow and ice removal control services for the year 2009, the winter 2019 and 2020. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
As always, these contracts are done actually 2 years out, and is a long-standing arrangement. Shared services that we have engaged in with the state in this case and with the county in a separate contract that we do with the county. We provide snow and ice control on state highways here in the town of Brighton, as other towns in Monroe County do, so the state doesn't have to provide that additional equipment. Our trucks are going down those streets anyway, so we do the work, and we are paid a formula that reflects wage rates and a number of other variables.
All about shared services.
Yes,
that,
it is.
We don't always get credit for.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We do get paid for it. That's important.
We do get paid for it, yeah. Okay, motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. And finally, and I know Robin is going to want to recuse herself on this one. This is a matter that proposes to extend the completion of the finding statement under seeker for the proposed Whole Foods Plaza project to March 29, 2018. Can I have a motion on that matter, please?
So moved.
Second. Is that adequate time?
That's the extension that the applicant has consented to at this point. We have a motion and a second on that. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. And Robin, if you can hear me, come on back. Yep. Good. Matters of the supervisor, I just want, can we go back just for a moment? I want to go back to communications, because we received a communication tonight from the Hodgson Russ law firm that I should have included in the list of items of communication. It's correspondence from Aaron Sakin of the Hodgson Russ law firm dated March 14, 2018. And can I have a friendly, well, let's just do a new amendment, a new motion to receive.
Wasn't that part of the open forum and he submitted it as part of that bill? Do we have to receive it as communication?
It's a different letter. Are you
I'm
talking
looking
about
at the February 14th.
This is.
Oh, you are talking about the one that he just made.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's what I
March
thought.
14th.
Did we receive and file this?
Yes, I believe we did, as
think we
part
did?
of the open forum.
Yeah,
Part of
not
the-
in the open forum, we didn't.
Mr.
No, no.
Marcus did ask that question.
So it was part of the
I think
approval
it
of the
was to be-
agenda.
Oh, it was to
part of
be
the
included
approval of the
in
agenda.
communications.
And
All
then
right.
you asked,
Then we
right?
did.
So-
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good.
According to my notes.
Yep, yep, we did. It was added to the list of communications. Great, thank you. Okay, matters of the supervisor. It's still snowing. And that means it is still important that Brighton residents observe the overnight parking restrictions. This morning, our crews were out, and I observed, you can tell, because the plows have negotiated around cars. That slows them down. It adds safety issues, and it means that the streets aren't getting plowed as well. So, and by the way, it also might mean you're going to get a ticket. So while you've still got time, it's 10 o'clock, but parking on the streets in Brighton through May 1st, after 2 o'clock, May 1st or April 15th? I always get that wrong, April 15th. I'm just so pessimistic about all this snow we're getting. But in any event, on March 14th, you cannot park your car overnight. So please, if you're listening to this, if your car is out on the street, save yourself a ticket, but just as importantly, help our plow drivers get our streets clean. Bring your car in off the street. Overnight parking is not allowed during the winter in Brighton. Thank you. That's the only matter I had. Matters of the attorney.
I've talked enough tonight. Thank you.
I won't argue with you. Thank you. Matters of the town clerk or deputy town clerk?
I haven't talked enough, but I don't have anything to say.
Matters of the town board.
I did just want to bring attention to some of our recreation programs tonight. We have on Saturday, March 24th, the ever-popular Breakfast Hop and Hunt at the Brookside Recreation Center from 9:30 to 11 a.m. There's still room in this popular program. This is an indoor egg hunt. Who doesn't love that? Which includes a light breakfast, an egg hunt by age, and visit from the Spring Bunny. Registration is required and space is limited, so you may register online, by mail, or in person at the Recreation Department. In addition to that, our winter and spring programs are still ongoing, and I want to remind everyone that you do not have to be a resident of Brighton to participate in the Brighton Recreation Department's programs. Full program information may be found on our winter-spring program and brochures that are available both online at the Brighton Town Hall and at the Brighton Memorial Library and the Brighton Central School District buildings. Also, please don't forget to join us on Sundays in the winter for our Winter Farmers Market. And that is on Sundays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Brookside Recreation Center, 220 Idlewood Road. Upcoming programs of interest at the market, the Winter Market, which does have additional programming in addition to our regular market, our dog training, Puppy Head Start with Lollipop Farm, Zumba Gold, Yoga for Flexibility, Adult Tap, Rockabilly Jive Dance, and New York State Boater Safety Course, and many more. Don't forget to like our Recreation Department on Facebook and to stay up to date with all the upcoming events and programs within your community.
Thanks. Rob, do you want to talk about Clean Sweep?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We are also accepting registrations for our annual Clean Sweep program, which will be on Saturday, May 12th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. this year. This is, again, one of the most popular community programs of the year, and we do accept registration online through our Brighton Recreation Department.
Thank you. Great.
And Bill, I wanted to read into the record an email from Margie Pete regarding the CCA public hearing.
And this should be made part of the public hearing record. I know that we don't have a stenographer anymore, but if we can forward this email
So I can
to
forward it to you then?
the clerk, yeah, or the deputy clerk, as the case may be. But you can read it. Go ahead.
Margie wanted to say that implementation needs to make renewable energy a priority, and also the paragraph letter designations in section 2 of the local law need to be corrected so that they are sequential. They currently skip letters.
Uh-oh.
So
Good catch, Margie.
I've shared this with council. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I will forward it.
Yeah, just forward it to me and I'll include it in.
Any other matters of the town board? Hearing none, then can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters relating to the employment of particular people, real estate, and litigation?
So moved.
Second.
David, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. I do not anticipate that we will have to come back into open session afterwards. Our next town board meeting will be at 7:00 p.m. on Wednesday, March 28th, right here in this room. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight, and have a great evening.